This is John Ryan, and joining me from Skjern, Denmark, is Greenlander Marxwell Frederiksen and Canadian Jackson Howden. And this is part two of our podcast. First part, got to know each of these young men a little bit better, how they got involved with handball. Now we're going to talk a little bit of controversy, a little bit of, I think, hopefulness for the future. But as many people are probably aware, the Pan American Team Handball Federation was split in two, with a North American and Caribbean Handball Confederation, the NACHC, if you will, and then the SCA-HC, which is South and Central America Handball Confederation. So they're split in two, which I think was a really good move, one that I think that should have been done a long time ago, and has set up a new grouping of nations, give us a little bit more focus, avoid trips down to South America, and South America avoiding trips up north. Although, Maxwell, were you there for the 2018 Pan American Championships?
No, I was actually not there.
But
from Denmark.
The biggest sporting event in Greenland history, and you didn't get to see it.
No, I was living in Denmark, and I got injured a year prior to that, so I didn't get to any assemblies with the team. So,
wow, I watched a lot of those games online. That was quite the event. Did you get a chance to see some of those games, Jackson?
No, I didn't get to see them. I've watched them all now afterwards, but I never saw them live.
That was quite an atmosphere that they had there, wasn't it?
It was a great atmosphere. I could even feel the atmosphere from watching it live stream. So.
Yeah, it was that game against Chile for third place and to go to the World Championships. What a match! What an ending! I interviewed Minnick Dalhogue afterwards, and to have a podcast about that where we talk about the game and a little bit about handball in Greenland. But what a match! I mean, that was something. Greenland unfortunately came up short, but wow, what a hard fought match from a Greenland side that gave it their all and took a pretty solid Chile team right down to the wire. And maybe that's a good segue for the discussion, because unfortunately, the North American Championships never took place due to COVID. And the IHF made the decision to grant the United States a slot at the World Championships, and that's caused a little bit of ill feeling, I think, with some of our North American friends and neighbors. Personally, I liked the move. I think it was a smart move from a business standpoint. I also think that the U.S. team is a lot more competitive than we've had, but that's my opinion. I've written about it. Let's get your guys' opinion. Why don't we first go with Jackson and how you feel about the whole situation?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there on the business side. It was the right decision. Just the population is so big, and the U.S. is going to host the Olympics in 2020. Like, I see it from the business side. I would have made that decision as well. But just kind of from the sportsmanship side, where everyone deserves a chance and anything can happen, it seems a little bit unfair. And in Canada, we were ready to go, like moments notice. I was ready to get on a plane and go wherever I needed to go. And just that day where you heard that the IHF just said, yeah, no tournament, we're just going to send the US, it was a little bit demoralizing, I'd say. But I'm still 19. I'm still, like, I turned 20 in 2 weeks here, so I still have the U19 or the U21 tournament this year coming up in the Junior Pan Ams. So it's not as big as a deal as it would be for Maxwell, I'd say, but
yeah. So I also see the same thing, business-wise. Smart move. It's great for the handball, I would say, to take US because like Jackson said, the population is so big, and they have some really interesting like athletes, if you can say so. Like if you look at the NFL and the NBA, we see some athletes who are capable of really like great stuff. So it's really exciting. But sportsman-wise, again, I feel like it's really disappointing because every one of us have had the dream, to go to the World Cup. And sports is all about, giving everyone a chance if they can prove themselves. So, for instance, like you said in the previous podcast, we've been beating the US quite a bit. So, if you look at that and they kind of say we're just gonna pick US instead of the best rated team, if you could say so, it feels a bit unfair because we only see, okay, it's only money involved. There's not really anything else going on like with the sport. So we don't feel like they proved themselves, to get the spot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think all three of us can agree that the best way to decide who to go is to do it on the court. I think we can get a big head nod on that. I guess one of the things that bothered me a little bit in the Danish media and a few other places as well, and there's no argument. I mean, Greenland has beaten the U.S. 9 times in a row. We haven't beaten you guys since the very first match I think we played back in 1998. And we haven't played Greenland since 2016, I believe. And we haven't played Canada since, well, we played Canada, the Pan Am qualifiers in 2018. And we also played Canada at the North American Championships in 2018. Greenland didn't have to go to that because you guys were hosting the final tournament. But the U.S. basically changed our roster 75 to 80% between the North American Championship and the qualifiers for the Pan Am Games. And the big part of that change was a lot of dual citizens that are playing at pretty high levels in Europe. I don't know, Jackson, if you had a chance to see both of the U.S. Canada games at the Pan Am qualifiers.
Yeah, I've seen those games.
Yeah,
I also know quite a few guys on the.
I'm sorry, I talked over you there. Can you repeat?
Oh, yeah, no, I've seen all those games, and I know quite a few of the dual citizen guys that are playing over here in Europe. So
yeah. Well, would you argue that the current USA team is a better team than Canada? Would you agree with that assessment?
I would say at the senior level for sure. I would say they beat us. I would say it might even be I would still argue it'd probably be a close game just because I think Canada and Greenland would have better chemistry on the court just because we've been playing together, and the US is more of just like a bring all the best players together and hope they can play.
Well, it's one way of looking at it. I agree with you there. I mean, for sure, especially Greenland and some of the many years those guys have been playing together, there's going to be better chemistry. Also with Canada, not to the level of Greenland. And honestly, I think a Greenland USA match would be very interesting right now. I think it would be a close game, but and of course I'm biased. I think we have a little bit better team right now. But I understand why somebody from Greenland would say, "Hold on a second, not true."
Yeah, that's why I would say I wouldn't agree to that. From my standpoint, we still have a better team. Like,
Yeah.
if you look at how many years people have been playing handball, all that knowledge is so valuable on a field. So it's like, if you look at that only, I would say we are so solid of a team that we could beat them like at any time.
There's no question in my mind.
That's how confident I am in my national
Yeah.
team.
If I had to look at it, I would say I think the U.S. would beat Canada 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I think so.
That doesn't mean that 1 out of 10 couldn't happen.
Exactly.
And I think Greenland, it's really hard to say because we haven't played. You haven't really seen how the teams would match up. I would say it's probably, this is just my informed opinion, I would say probably 60-40 U.S. But I can understand why somebody from Greenland would say, no, nah, you don't know what you're talking about. But I don't think it's, some of the comments, articles made it imply that it was a foregone conclusion that Greenland would beat the U.S. and that's simply not true right now. Just the way we've beefed up our roster with some quality dual citizens, and I'm just bummed that we couldn't play it on the court because it would have been really interesting. And those were just the teams, along with Puerto Rico, that were willing to participate in the tournament. I guess they were looking at having it in Puerto Rico. The North American Confederation was kind of, I wouldn't say secretive, but I'm not sure whatever happened in those negotiations. What were some of were you guys being told, Jackson, you mentioned you were ready to go anywhere to go play. What were some of the rumors, if you will, that you were hearing?
Yeah, so we, after November 2nd, they canceled that tournament that was supposed to happen November 2nd. Our high performance director just kind of said they're looking at things that might be held in Europe. It might be held down in Uruguay with the other tournament. And they had to make a decision by I think it was November 13th or something. They had to make it the Friday or Sunday, November 13th. And we had to be ready to go kind of at a moment's notice for a qualifying tournament. I think that was the same for Marxwell. We were told that it might be in Europe, it might be in Uruguay. No one has any idea.
I was saying, let's play it in Denmark or in Flensburg. We have a one player down in Flensburg. You're shaking your head, Jackson. What?
No, I don't think I was. No, I was shaking my head yeah, we should play it in Denmark, it in Germany. Yeah. I don't have to travel back across the sea and back and forth.
Well, and that's the way I looked at it. It's very easy for, in fact, that's basically how you have to get to Denmark most of the time. You have to travel through, to get to Greenland, you have to travel through Denmark. And we already had most of our players in Europe. Honestly, traveling to Denmark would have been easier for the U.S. team than traveling to Puerto Rico. And I think probably the same for the other teams, except for Puerto Rico. And I'm not sure why that didn't materialize, but like I said, unfortunately, we didn't get to play the game on the court. And I should also mention, I think Cuba right now has the best team in North America. I don't know if you guys have watched Cuba online, but they have a very talented side.
I've never seen Cuba play, so I cannot comment on that.
Yeah, they got a player playing in the first division in France. They've got a sprinkling of players all over Europe, and historically, a lot of them have obtained citizenship in different European countries because that's how they had to sneak out of Cuba to go play in Europe, and then they were not allowed to play for Cuba anymore. So a lot of them, got Spanish citizenship. Carlos Perez had Hungarian citizenship. The goalie for Portugal, I don't know if you guys have seen Quintana play. He's a pretty damn good goalie, and he's Cuban. So there's a
Wow.
I guess that, segue. It's a shame we didn't get play championship this time around, but I'm telling you, the next time we do have a championship, it is going to be a battle amongst the teams that we've been discussing here. You guys looking forward to that possibility?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we talk about me and him, me and Max go at each other all the time about it, just because it'll be such an experience for me, at least, to play. I hope for Max to play against each other after we have lived with each other for 2 years now.
Yeah.
That will be a showdown for the ages, and maybe with championship possibilities. Going to the World Championship on the line. One side point, and I don't know if you guys are aware of it. When they did the North-South split, they gave 4 World Championship spots to South America and just 1 to North America. I don't think that's a fair split. What do you guys think?
You want to go first?
I mean, against sportsmanship, it's probably not fair, but historically, those teams down in South America have been able to compete with European nations, and people from North America they've almost been walkover games for European nations. So I see in the skill department why they would give 4 slots down there, but I still like to grow the sport. You need more teams from North America to go. So
yeah, I totally agree to that. Like, the split seems really unfair, but then again, the competitive side is on the south. So, I mean, we have, like you said yourself, they're like US are coming with like an interesting roster. Cuba has an interesting roster, but it's not something we have seen. So for them to decide if we have multiple spots or the only, the one spot, it's really hard to say because the competitive side of it has been so low.
Well, I would argue Brazil and Argentina, they're head and shoulders above. Chile has also been making some noise. They knocked off Brazil at the Pan Am Games, which is a surprise. And you can extrapolate there. Chile had to take overtime to beat Greenland. Chile beat Brazil. Maybe, they're better, but maybe not as much better as we think. I think that the split probably should have been 3-2. And perhaps you guys are a little bit miffed that the USA got a slot, but in order to make that argument more effectively, we need a good US performance at the World Championships to argue that, hey, we should get another slot.
But even though don't the US have a wild card spot at the next one and the 2025 one, which opens up kind of a second spot for North America?
That's a very good point. I hadn't thought about that, but it's actually 2025 and 2027. 2023, we don't get a slot. There's an interesting matchup in the President's Cup, potential matchup, which would be USA versus Uruguay. I think that on the whole, the US, Cuba, and Greenland can beat Uruguay, I think. And Uruguay got the fourth slot. Somehow Uruguay beat Chile. I don't know exactly what happened in that match, but Uruguay is a step down from Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. I think that we have a better team, and that might be a big matchup where, it's kind of a statement, in terms of future World Championship places.
Yeah.
Now, here's another topic, and I think this one might be of interest to you guys in the training situation that you have. Are you familiar with the Forum Club Handball support to U.S. players in terms of placement with pro teams?
Isn't that the thing where clubs get an extra monetary supplement if they have U.S. players with them?
There is. There's compensation with the pro club. They essentially get a heavily discounted or free player on their roster.
Yeah.
If they take an American in with their program, and depending on the case with the athletes we've sent, they probably would not be with the club where they are and in the training environment that they have without that program.
Yeah.
And I look where you guys are talking about, hey, you know, we've moved over here to Denmark to train and be better players, but we're playing at a little bit lower level and the practices aren't consistent. And I would guess that's a program you guys would be interested in extending to other countries.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I don't know if that can be done, but for sure that's an advantage. Ty Reed is in Flensburg now, and he's playing with their second team, but he also gets practices with the first team, which has really got to be beneficial to him. What do you guys think about opening that up to Canada, Greenland, and other nations? Think that's something should be done?
Yeah, I mean, it opens a huge possibility for players to, you know, start to take the sport even more serious than they do, and also, yeah, it's like for developing players, I think it would be really great for both of the countries, especially for the national team. Like, no matter how high the level is, just to get an extra player away, you know, overseas and play on a different level, get more matches, it will have a, you know, a big saying, benefit, a huge benefit.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I definitely think more players from Canada would come if there was like they could play at higher level clubs, because the issue I'm finding is that players just come here and they get like so mentally defeated because the practices aren't what they want them to be, and it's just because their experience and their skill level isn't where it needs to be. But if there was like that extra kind of push to say, hey, take them, we'll kind of pay you guys to train them, I bet you a lot more players would kind of start coming over.
Yeah. I look at it as a helping hand, if you will, to take into account the even in Greenland, a nation that's very passionate about handball. What you described, Maxwell, is like, hey, you know, a full up quality practice. What you're getting in Denmark compared to what you get in Greenland, just because population wise, just because, you know, training wise, you can't even really play games. You have players that they may be a certain age, but they really haven't developed like they would have in Europe just because they didn't have the opportunities.
Yeah. And some of the players in a really young age, like they still say, you know, this guy has a great potential, but because of the environment and because of, you know, the lack of drive, if you can say so, for competitive, you know, handball, it's so low that they kind of get pushed away from it and start to do other stuff, you know, start to work instead of playing handball, and, you know, the interest kind of goes away. So I think it would be something really interesting, you know, to keep developing players.
Yeah. Well, any thoughts on where the next championship should be for North America?
I kind of think it'd be cool if it was in the U.S., just in U.S. soil, but I'm almost confused on why they didn't host it in the U.S. or I know why they didn't host it in Canada, because we had that 2-week quarantine rule. But in the US didn't seem to really have much of a quarantine rule.
I'm not 100% sure, but definitely. I mean, even in the NHL hockey, the teams had no problem coming down to play in that tournament.
Yeah.
The U.S., I know we're a big country and we have on paper a lot of resources, but our federation is pretty cash strapped. And one of the issues that has always impacted us is with the Pan American rules. There's a set amount that's charged per hotel, and hotels in the U.S. can be expensive. And if we were to host a tournament, we'd be going in the hole right off the bat just to have the teams come visit, because we would have to pony up that money in terms of hosting. I don't know if the North American Confederation can maybe reconsider the rules that the Pan American Federation had.
Are they the same rules that apply to like the IHF trophy?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what but see, the IHF comes in and helps pay for quite a bit of that. So I think that's one of the reasons why it was financially feasible for us to host the tournament. I know that when we hosted the beach championships, we started at a loss because of that, because of the per player per day hotel cost was substantially lower than what you could get for a hotel cost in the San Diego area. And I'm sure Greenland had the same sort of thing when they hosted as well. And they even had that charter flight to get people, up to that tournament. I think there was some special financial deal that was cut in order to make that feasible for the teams to travel to Greenland to play. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of North American tournaments have been in Mexico. I think the president of the Confederation is Mexican, and he's linked in with the Olympic Committee there, and they can get that facility in Mexico City. I don't know if it's free, but dramatically lower cost to house athletes and stuff to have them participate in that tournament. I think it would be good to mix it up a little bit and to have it in the U.S. or in Canada, or even back in Greenland. Maybe wait a couple cycles to get back up there. Here's kind of a crazy thought that I had. What's the beach handball situation in Canada and Greenland?
I mean, I was never introduced to beach handball in Greenland, and it's because we don't really have any beaches. So there's no way to really go and play for fun if you want to do that. So I was actually introduced to it here in Denmark. So yeah.
Yeah, and this summer when I was back at home, Mike actually set up like a kind of like a mini beach handball league that we played on beach volleyball courts, and there was like 4 teams that just played once a week, and that's how I kind of got started, and I loved it. And now they're saying there's a tournament in Toronto or Eastern Canada this summer. I have no information about that, but they asked me if I wanted to play, and I was like, I got nothing better to do. Sure, why not?
Yeah. And Maxwell, this may sound crazy, but if you look at what American Samoa did in qualifying for the Youth Olympic Games, and I think there's maybe 25,000 people in American Samoa. I'm not really sure off the top of my head. Believe it or not, they had to import sand because I guess their island is volcanic. They don't really have sandy beaches. Yeah. They had to find sand somewhere to put it and I think the one place they practice isn't anywhere near a beach. but because it's now that you've played it a little bit, you need fewer quality players. I mean, it's let's put it like this: if Greenland put their mind to it, I think you guys could probably put together a pretty solid team fairly quickly. And with fewer players, it's something that you guys could rise to the top.
It's true. It doesn't require a full roster like of 16 players. But I think the big issue is getting the sand to Greenland and set up, the fields. Because, everything is already imported. So just
play snow handball.
Yeah.
We'll start playing it on the snow.
Obviously, you'd have to play it inside somewhere.
Yeah, obviously. But during the summer, you could actually do it outside, but you can only do it for so long, and then it starts to get cold and snow. So it's quite hard.
It's like I said, it sounds crazy, but if the decision was to try and put together a good team, I bet you guys would be competitive, and the opportunity to go to a world championship might actually be a little bit simpler than one might envision. And competing against other nations is also easier since it's not professionalized. You're not going to be going up against Mikkel Hansen and Rasmus Slaga or whatever. You're going to have other guys that are just doing it mostly for fun, working hard, but they're not getting paid to do it. And that's one of the reasons why the U.S. has become fairly competitive on the world stage quickly. So, and the other aspect of that is I think part of the reason with the North American Confederation is if you look at all of the island nations in the Caribbean, it's going to be real tough for them to get competitive on the 7-on-7 side. But beach handball might make sense for them, especially if you're looking at a nation like St. Kitts and Nevis, which is small population. They also have advantage of it being a little bit warmer there, I would say. Maxwell, another question for you. One of the biggest beefs I had with the IHF and their announcement was they talked about the U.S. having the best record at the Pan Am Games, which I thought was really tone deaf because Greenland cannot participate in the Pan Am Games. What's your thoughts about full independence for Greenland, and then also, being able to compete in the Pan Am Games and the Olympic Games?
My thoughts on that? I mean, yeah, I don't know where to put it. I've never really thought about it in that way, because we always knew that at some point in sports we can't represent two teams, because Denmark is essentially a second team. So that's why we go to the NACHC to qualify to get the spot for the World Cups, and because we can't participate in the European Cups where Denmark is also there. So, but when you look at this in sports in general, we have some few athletes who represent Denmark in some areas, and in that way, of course, it's really hard for them. Everyone knows they're from Greenland, but from outside viewers, they wouldn't know. They would just think, oh, it's just a part of the Danish national team or the Norwegian or what it is. So for us to get our independence, it could be really cool. It could be something amazing, I would say, because everyone wants to represent, their own nation, and you have a certain pride to represent it and show them what you're capable of. And I think that part is also has something to say with how the sports are going in general, because it's so hard to get the outside to see what Greenland is capable of, because we can't really compete here in Europe, for instance. So if that were to happen, I think a lot of players would start to play even more, so we can, show the rest of the world, hey, Greenland, we are here. We're a small population, but we have a heart for sports. So everywhere you go in Greenland, you see kids playing with balls, and if you go into the halls, everyone is just playing handball or soccer or what it is. So I think it would be really, it would be mind blowing if we got our independence and we're able to go ourselves.
Yeah. Well, it would certainly, if you had to look at where you guys could theoretically qualify, for the Olympics, in Iceland, a bigger Faroe Islands, if you will, with 300,000 people, they were the darlings. I want to say the 2012 Olympics when they got the silver medal in handball. Yeah. Within Europe. So if you look in the context of how Europe is the top spot for handball, how they have been able to compete over the years with a dramatically smaller population, it's not hard to envision a golden generation, if you will, of Greenland players, being born at the right time, coming together and challenging for a spot at the Pan Am Games.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm getting a message that my internet connection is unstable. So maybe we should wrap this up. It's been great talking to you guys. I think this is a fun story. You guys becoming friends and in Denmark and playing handball, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you guys on the court. 2020 senior championships. I guess Jackson, you said you had a tournament coming up. When is that, or is that still kind of nobody knows because of delays?
We don't really know, but I'm still of age to play at the Junior World Championships, so we have to qualify with IHF Trophy or the North American Championships, which has to happen sometime before July, and then we have the Junior Pan American Games in September too.
Junior Pan American Games?
Yeah, I think it's the first time it's happening. It's in Cali, Colombia, in September 7th or something.
So this is it wouldn't be an International Handball Federation event. It'd be more of an Olympic event. That's what I'm trying to. Now that we've split into two federations, a Junior Pan Am Games, I'm not sure how that works.
I couldn't tell you how it works either. I've just been told that there's a Junior Pan American Games happening in Colombia in September, and they were asking me if I was interested in having my name on the short list to go to that, and I said, of course.
Well, I will have to.
Yeah, from what I know, it's kind of odd because it's players from 2000 to 2001, plus you can have 3 players from 1999 or something. There was some weird rule regulation for ages, but.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a whole other can of worms. They're going to have a women's Pan American Championships this year because the Women's World Championship, they're going to have to qualify some teams for that. And who knows when and where that tournament will be, but it's got to take place sometime next year. We just have to get over this.
I think we kind of have to. Yeah, I think it has to happen. I don't think it's fair that two tournaments in a row, the IHF just kind of decides who goes. I think this, for the women's at least, they kind of have to force a tournament.
Well, and it would be a tougher argument for our women's team to say we're the best. It would it would be more of a stretch. So hopefully that will take place, and that might be the first major North American event, and hopefully it will take place this summer once we get this vaccine out and everybody's back to playing handball. And 2020 is just a bad taste in everyone's mouths. Anyway, guys, it's been great talking to you. So for Jackson Howden and Marxwell Frederiksen, I'm John Ryan. You've been listening to the Team Handball News podcast. Thanks for listening.